Welcome, everyone, to the Week 6 XFL show. We are back. We usually do these shows when there is a Saturday lock, and there is a Saturday lock. We have a lock just in 2 hours at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we're here to kind of help you guys break down the slate and find some winners. I am Meg, and I'm, of course, joined by my guys, Bruce and Bobby. And there's a lot of news to catch up on. So we're gonna try to dive right into it. But let me go check in with the guys first. Bruce, I got to meet you last week at the RPS party. It was wonderful to meet you. And what are you thinking about, this slate today, and how's it going there?
Yeah, had a great time. Good to see good to see you and all the guys as well.
Absolutely.
It's a nice day here in Texas. Probably gonna spend a little bit of time outside after the show's over. Maybe relax by the pool, have a drink or something. So
nice.
It's like 80 degrees and sunny. So
Any sky picks for everyone?
Yeah, I might have one or two.
That sounds like a sky pick is in the making.
It's definitely coming. I didn't see a cloud in the sky earlier, so it was great. But last week I got screwed over by Houston. Of course, like a lot of us, a lot of us had Kirkland. He got hurt early on, ended up with 0 just sitting on my screen for 4 days. So that's solid. Made up for it with the Saturday to Sunday slate. So that felt good, and some of the showdowns as well. I'm looking forward to this week. There's some good games. I hate that they put the Monday game on there, but I don't love a game or two on this slate. So it'd be fun to talk about it with you guys.
Right. Well, I know I was thinking about like the 3-day thing. It almost feels like DFS NFL like years ago, where you had to wait till the Monday night to, sweat it out all the way through the Sunday night, Monday night games to see if you shipped and won anything. So we have 3 days of XFL here, and we're, 2 games today, 1 game tomorrow, and then 1 game Monday night. But Bobby, I did miss you. We kind of were we were passing each other, didn't get to meet you, but so excited to do a show with you, our first show together. So that makes me excited. And Bobby, we were just talking about, had an awesome night in NBA. So he's going to carry that good mojo right into XFL to help us pick some winners today. But how are you doing today? And are you ready for this XFL slate today?
Yeah, I'm ready for the slate. Should be a fun one, and hopefully keep the momentum going on from NBA last night into today. So pick some XFL and some NBA winners throughout the day. It should be an interesting week. I think we talked a little bit pre-show just how much pricing has changed since the beginning of the season, and so I think it'll be another week where likely I'm spending up at quarterback and spending up at wide receiver, not quite as much at running back. But there's a couple other interesting paths that I think we can talk through today. And unfortunately, I will not be able to spend any time by the pool today since I live up in Minnesota, and it's a brisk, probably like 40 degrees out right now. So I at least can go outside a little bit, but it's definitely not, my ties by the pool kind of weather.
My ties by the pool. Yeah, it's pouring in Baltimore. I took my dog for a walk, and we both threw in the towel. I was like, "Bud, you got to wrap it up here. We got to." It's pouring, so we're all jealous of your weather, Bruce. So definitely have a drink for us by the pool.
Come on down anytime. Yeah.
Because that sounds awesome. Well, we got people coming in and joining us as we go here. When you come in and here, be sure to hit that like button, and we really appreciate that. And then of course I'm sure we'll have some people watching right up to lock too. But let's get into it, since we do have a tight turnaround before the lock. And I do want to ask you guys about what Bobby mentioned first about the pricing. It was so soft to begin the season. You could leave tons of money on the table, the first week or two. And now pricing is really tight because we know who the good teams are, where the volume's going. And, it's really tight. If you want to stack up one of these good quarterbacks with their stud receiver, it gets tight quickly. So, I think lineup construction is a big question mark. I tend to want to pay up for the receivers and punt off the one running back. But in a case like last week, Abram Smith just goes off for 3 touchdowns over 200 yards. That's not going to work in those scenarios. And so I think it's all relative to the slate and the kind of range of outcomes for each position. If the quarterback range of outcomes aren't as wide, I think you could get away with maybe paying down for like a Dormady. We'll talk about him in a little bit. If the running back position isn't as wide this week, I think you could get away with paying down for a running back. And I think you're always going to have to probably pay down at least one receiver spot. So that's kind of my just like general like brain dump on the pricing and kind of lineup construction and what I'm going through in my head as I'm like finalizing building my lineups. But Bruce, I'll go to you first. What are you thinking about lineup construction with the tighter pricing, with that in mind?
Yeah, I just think it's gotten a lot better. This week Abram Smith is 9,400.
Yeah, it's
hard to pay up for that when there's so many good wide receiver options on this slate, with a lot of teams throwing the ball more and more. I kind of prefer it. It just makes you make a choice, there. If you look at the running back ownerships, the two studs this week, Brian Hill and Abram Smith, both near 9K, they're going to be close to 40% owned each. So, if you find that cheap running back play, it just sets you apart from all those lineups that have them if they fail. I just I love building like that, just because you can get a lot different than the field for sure.
What would be your take on punting? Just a quick question we could talk about more when we get to this Orlando game. What would be your take on punting down at the quarterback position?
Yeah, that's interesting this week. If I knew that Dormady was going to get all of the snaps, I'd be in 100%. But yes, he is 6K, so that's not horrible. You could play like Jawan Pass, who's probably under the same situation there in San Antonio, who has a little bit of he's a very mobile guy. Played at Louisville and ran quite a bit. Terrible passer though. So, but I don't mind either of those guys in tournaments, especially Dormady. He looked great last week. Orlando could do nothing, and he came in and looked so good. So, and the Seattle defense, we're not really scared of them. They did look better last week when they played Houston. So, that's a little scary, but I think that's a very contrarian way to build, because he's going to be like 10% owned or so.
Right. Bobby, let's go to you just on this pricing, discussion before we get into the game by game breakdown. I mean, what are you thinking about as far as lineup construction, considering pricing being so tight?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good wide receivers to spend up for, and DiNucci's clearly the best quarterback play on the week, especially from a raw projection standpoint. So it's, that just makes it tough to spend up at running back. I mean, I think too, in particular with DC and Houston, both defenses have had pretty good defensive lines this year. I mean, Wade Phillips coaches the Roughnecks, and their defense has been pretty legit. And so I have a hard time paying that much for Abram Smith. I wish it were a little bit better matchup. And I could also see Houston getting ahead on DC and it being, I think the game script could end up not working out quite as well for him. And we've seen that early in the season with Abram Smith. He's had a really good role, but not crazy involved. He can catch passes a little bit, but he hasn't been super involved in the pass game. So I have a hard time spending my money there. I mean, I think the way that I want to spend is typically going to be on Brian Hill or Jacquez Patrick, or there's a couple different punt options that we have this week. I mean, there's TJ Hammonds on Seattle, who they were touting as the Debo of the offense at the beginning of the year. That didn't come to fruition. I took some shots on him early in the season, but he had some involvement last week, and with Ellison out this week, punting with Hammonds definitely makes for some interesting builds. And I think my favorite guy this week at running back, though, is Jacquez Patrick, just kind of that mid-range option where he's going to be involved in the pass game. He'll get majority of the carries too. So I think I'm either going full punt or a mid-range guy like Patrick in a lot of instances.
I'm right there with you. That's exactly what I'm thinking. So it feels good to talk about this first before we kind of go game by game. And we're going to go game by game. And we're also going to note, obviously there's been a lot of injuries and new transactions and new players coming in. So we will try to note that as best we can. A lot of news. We were all cramming last night. Bobby's playbook is awesome. It's up. If you're a Run Pure subscriber, obviously check out the playbook, check out the core plays. You can check us out in Discord. You have all those resources. If you're not a Run Pure subscriber, I will tell you now that you could use any one of our codes, Meg 15, Bruce 15, Bobby 15, and you get 15% off. So, if you're not a subscriber, we have a ton of XFL resources, and this is where you really just need that news and need that information, and we have that for you. So now, with that said, let's go game by game and try to figure this all out here. First, in about an hour and 45 minutes at 1 p.m. Eastern, we have the Seattle Sea Dragons at the Orlando Guardians. We were discussing, we kind of started name dropping some certain players, injuries or new players in positions. So we have Morgan Ellison is out at running back for Seattle. That opens up some opportunities that Bobby was alluding to for a couple guys. And then at quarterback for the Guardians, it looks like it's going to be Quentin Dormady. Again, do we think he's going to get the full run? If he does, I'm a little interested at 6,000, potentially punting off. Again, you would need none of the quarterbacks to then go off for like 35, but then you really could put together a lineup, that I think is interesting. So I wanted to talk those things through. So Bruce, go over any other transactions, any other kind of, players that you're looking at in this very first game.
So the big thing for me is Josh Gordon.
I missed that one. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
'Cause it surprised me yesterday while I was looking over the stats. He I think he got like 30% of the snaps in the game against Houston,
right?
Which is well under 40% of the snaps, which is well under what he usually gets. He's not on the depth chart for some reason. So. That's something to watch for pregame. I don't think he was on he's not on the injury report at all.
Right.
He wasn't listed as an active either. So I don't know. Maybe he's just benched. But
well, he had that dust. I didn't get to see it because I believe that was the game where we were at the RPS party and I was bugging Bruce for winners before the game locked. But no, from what I heard, he and DiNucci got into it about not completing a route or something, and there's obviously something there. Like you said, there's obviously some smoke there.
I fell asleep because it came on at like 10:30.
Yeah.
And I'm usually an 8 o'clock in bed kind of guy. So it was rough. But yeah, Damian Willis did step in and looked great. He's a big receiver from Troy, and I think he had 5 or 6 targets last week. I know he had a touchdown. So yeah, I think he's a good solid option at 3,700 for value. I think he's a great play this week, especially if we get some pregame news about Gordon. I still think he's a good play either way. I think they give him some run here. Same with Ja'Cour Pearson. It's been good every week. Mm-hmm. He's priced up, so it is tough to get there, but he is a good player. Like Bobby said, DiNucci is probably the best quarterback play on the slate. He's going to be heavily owned. I would say 25-30%. Of course, this Orlando defense is terrible. They haven't won a game yet. They lost against Vegas last week, gave up 35 points. So it's tough to fade DiNucci in this spot. It's such a good spot for him. Running back side, it's always really tough to play running back for Seattle because they'd love to throw the football a little bit. But Darius Bradwell at 5,500 with Ellison out, he looked solid last week. He played about 50% of the snaps, and that's a good price point for me. I was trying to decide between him and Rod Smith, both in that similar range, and both look good last week. So I'm interested in those guys. Cody Latimer as well. What did he score? 30 points last week. So in a game that they should be trailing with a good quarterback in Dormady, I definitely have some interest there. He should be under 20% owned this week again. They bumped his price up to $7,000. So that helps out quite a bit. And I think that's pretty much it for me there. You can always play any of these other Seattle receivers too. Some of them are cheap. Like
I was gonna say, there feels like there's so many of them now.
Yeah.
There feels like there's like really 5 options
Yep.
for DiNucci. So are you totally staying away from Gordon? I mean, obviously it would be, I assume, contrarian, but it feels so risky for me.
Yeah, it seemed risky all year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like he will take plays off, like just near the goal line. You won't see him in the game for some reason, and it's been weird. And then when he comes in, when you don't play him, he scores an 80-yard touchdown, and
Sure,
you're
right?
screwed.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm probably gonna fade him, and have some Damian Willis, I think, at 3,700. And maybe some Lance Lenore for Orlando at 3,700 as well.
I like the Lenore call too. Bobby, I'll go over to you. A lot of these players were covered very well in the playbook that you did, but you can kind of elaborate on Bruce's thoughts or any other plays that you like in this game. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed on Twitter there was something about Josh Gordon not being listed. Mike Mitchell, one of the guys that covers the XFL, said that was a clerical error. So Gordon should definitely be active this week.
Okay.
What his snap count is, that's remains to be seen.
Right.
But I mean, on the other hand, Orlando is like the worst team in the league. Gordon's probably going to be, I mean, he might be like less than 5% owned based on what happened last week and his price tag. So I think he's a really interesting contrarian option for tournaments. He's shown a massive ceiling. You've got to be prepared to potentially get 0 if he has another blow up with DiNucci, and he's just, he's had the history that he has. So if he just decided to quit on the team partway through the XFL season, I don't think any of us would be completely floored by that.
Right.
So, I mean, definitely if you're playing cash, not safe at all. Even if he's playing full snaps, I don't think that he'd be a good cash game play. I think he's actually pretty interesting for tournaments at what should be extremely low ownership. So I think that's a little bit contrarian. Pearson's obviously the main guy in Seattle.
Right.
He's just been a total target monster. And, we've seen who's ever been the starting running back have some success. So I think if you're fading DiNucci, I think it makes a lot of sense to play Bradwell and hope that he gets some the work on the goal line and gets some of those touchdowns. So I think that makes sense, just regardless from roster construction standpoint, it's going to be hard to not have some Seattle. So if you are fading DiNucci, I think that makes me definitely want to play Bradwell more, or more so you can essentially play some Seattle pass catchers and play them and end up punting at the quarterback position if you want to go with Dormandy. I mean, he's only 6K. I think he should play the whole time. Should be a really good script. So there's a lot of interesting options where you can do Orlando doubles with Lattimore and Lenore, or you can grab Rambo, who I know has made a couple big plays throughout the year too. So there's a lot of interesting ways that you can stack up the passing games. The Orlando run game I have absolutely zero interest in. Right. And I do think punting with TJ Hammonds is interesting. It's, I don't know, like I guess it's we're talking Debo comparisons with the XFL for a guy that's not even playing like heavy snaps and stuff. But he might have a few plays designed for him. He could break a big one. He's min-price, so I think that punting him makes some sense, and you could include him in your DiNucci stack since he should have some work in the pass game.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, I had him in my core and it felt very uncomfortable, but it's what it let the rest of me do with the rest of my lineup, right? It's not because I really want to play TJ Hammonds because he has not looked like Deebo Samuel. I got sucked into that the first week one. That did not work out. Has not worked out this season so far, but there's opportunity there this week that, to punt off like that position allows me to do so much. So I'm glad you said that. And I noticed you said that in the playbook too. And, I am definitely rolling one lineup with that. And he actually is in my core just to allow me to get so many stud receivers. You did mention though, for the Orlando side, just to follow up on, obviously Latimer has been the main guy, but Lenore's been coming on. Are you comfortable rostering him? He's definitely very, reasonably priced.
Yeah, I don't mind him. I definitely think he's someone that you can go to. He's had some pretty solid volume. But I think more so for the way that I'm targeting some of the pass game, I think I would rather just get more exposure to some of the Houston plays with Kirkland done for the year, I think there's going to be a lot of volume in that offense as well. So I think I would rather take a shot on, I mean, Latimer's obviously a really good play, but Rambo, I think, presents a little bit more upside as far as like a contrarian play in this offense. But Lenore is definitely in play for bringbacks or stacks, and even Eli Rogers is involved a little bit too,
Right.
the former NFL name.
Right, absolutely. You had mentioned somebody had asked kind of lineup construction, and we've talked about this in past shows and articles. I think we all kind of lean more often than not just running one running back and then 4 receivers as far as the lineup build. The receivers have just shown to have way, way more upside here in the XFL thus far. So I think that's what most of us have been doing. So good question in the chat. There more people have been joining us. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button as you come in. And we are heading over to our second game, which is at 7 p.m. tonight. It's the St. Louis Battlehawks at the Vegas Vipers. I'll go to you first. Bruce, it looks like Prez has taken over. Again, it was kind of going back and forth with the quarterback position there, but he's taken over as the Vegas quarterback. St. Louis offense has been very impressive. It definitely has a lot of pieces that you want to try to roster, but you have to pay for it. So who are you targeting in this game?
I think you can still play AJ McCarron here. It's Vegas. They gave up, I think, over 30 to Orlando last week, and might be the worst pass defense in the league. They're definitely the worst rush defense in the league. Probably second worst pass defense in the league. So they're at the bottom of the league in all defensive categories. Any of these St. Louis guys are in play for me. They do, so far this season, they have 98 runs to 213 passes. So they love to throw the ball around. So I love McCarron. McCarron here, the most owned running back on the slate is going to be Brian Hill, most likely, and at 8,900, he catches the ball out of the backfield, scores touchdowns, averaging 12 carries per game. So that's quite a bit for the XFL. So I think he's a great play. I thought Rod Smith looked great last week. He's actually the brother of Jalen Smith, formerly of the Cowboys, maybe on the Giants now. He's a good little running back. I thought he was good at Ohio State as well. I think he's a good play at 6,600. Like I said, I had a tough decision between him and Bradwell if I was spending down. So don't mind him. St. Louis has been terrible on defense. I think they were the ones who gave up 200 yards to Abram Smith last week.
Yeah.
So, that's. I think that's a good play today. Definitely under-owned. I see projections for ownership about 5%. So I think that's a good contrarian running back option there. Receivers, I think you got to start with Hakeem Butler. 100% of the snaps last week. Just looks like a monster out there. So, and Vegas pass defense is horrible. So you should see a lot of balls his way. St. Louis is very thin at wide receiver. I think they have 5 or 6 guys available. So I don't mind him, Shepard or Prohl. Prohl hasn't had a big game yet, but eventually it's coming. I've rostered him a couple of weeks, but I may have a team with him on it this week. On the Vegas side, it's pretty much, they're pretty thin at receiver as well.
Right.
Martavis Bryant's supposed to be back this week, though. So,
okay.
If you look at someone in tournaments, I think he's a solid play, just for his touchdown upside. Jeff Bidet is just solid. And I think he's a good play. A good tournament play on the St. Louis side, the receiver, Stephen Mitchell Jr. I think he's had a couple of long touchdowns this year, and he's speedy, plays on the outside, sometimes lines up in the backfield. I think that's a good solid play. Tight end, I don't see anything in this game that I'd like. I think this is a really sneaky shootout game that could end up 38-35 or something with these defenses being so terrible.
Right. Yeah. Someone in the chat mentioned that. How would you quickly prioritize the spends in this game? Because again, those guys are not cheap. With Butler and Hill, and obviously leave McCarron out of it. But the other running back receivers, how would you prioritize the spends in this game?
Yeah, I like the chalky guys, unfortunately, from this one. Butler and Hill and McCarron. But yeah, it's
And then
there's
Badette underneath that.
there's some good ways to get different here. Like you could play Shepard. He's going to be 10 to 15% owned, and he's on the
He's looked
field.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the field most of the game as well. So
Right.
and a lot of these receivers are interchangeable. They run some of them in the slot, some of them outside. Like Butler, he's in the slot 77% of the time, and Prohl 87% of the time. So, they just kind of rotate around, which I like to see. They do it to get them open, and both these secondaries from both teams are been horrible. So, you can make a case for pretty much any of these receivers on both sides.
All right, let's go over to Bobby now. Bruce broke it down great with all kind of the options. So with that said, this game could shoot out. What options are you targeting?
Yeah, I mean, Butler's the top priority for me in this game.
Sure.
I mean, certainly
I think mine too.
Find a play on his own, find a play with a stack with McCarron if you want.
Right.
I share the same sentiment as Bruce that I've played Prohl a fair bit this year, and he had that game winner week one, someone that McCarron has given some targets to. So I think that St. Louis just looks really solid. I think that there could be some shootout potential in this one. I also agree that Perez probably starts after had that good week last week, but I wouldn't go to him in DFS. I mean, I think that if you wanted to try and stack this game up and play Perez, it's not the craziest idea, but I do think that he has a shorter leash than any other quarterback. Like we've seen Hundley replace him, we've seen Hundley start over him, so I don't know if it ends up being a hot hand thing or I think Hundley had a lower body injury that he dealt with early in the year. Maybe he was hurt last week a little bit or aggravated something. So I think that there's just kind of a fair bit of risk with Perez, and I don't really see the upside as far as taking on that risk. A lot of the targets are pretty funneled to Jeff Badette, so if I wanted to get exposure to the Vegas offense, I think I would rather just play Badette for the passing game.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like we all targeted Allison and Martavis Bryant early in the season just with being bigger NFL names and stuff, but it's hard to click those names. I don't think that they're the craziest GPP plays, but probably somewhere that I'm not going. And I think Brian Hill is one of the best running back plays on the week this week as well. So, I mean, I think you're probably a little contrarian if you stack this game up. I don't think it's going to have, I think that most of the ownership's going to be funneled to Butler, Hill, and McCarron, and some of the other guys will have some ownership, throughout. But I don't think that stacking this game is going to be necessarily the most popular route this week. So it's probably a little bit contrarian to go that way, and I think that's interesting. But for me, I'm mainly interested in grabbing Hakeem Butler, who's just been a total alpha in this offense, and kind of moving on.
Absolutely. If you did pay up for running back, would you go Brian Hill or Abram Smith from DC?
I prefer Brian Hill. I think that he's also safer. And when we get to another game, I actually have a different spend up at running back that if I had to spend up at running back that I think is interesting this week.
Okay.
So, sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
We got some inactives for the first game.
Yes.
It looks like Quentin Flowers is out, the quarterback, mobile quarterback for Orlando. And also Paxton Lynch is out.
So who is the backup quarterback to Norman?
Let's see. That is a good question.
Let's pull up the database because this is
nobody. Francois, actually, he's still there. Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot he was still there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would think Normandy's safer since Lynch is out. So yeah, I think that's a solid play. Let me check the other.
So that makes you have a little more security about the Normandy play if you do want to punt off quarterback. Yeah.
That feels a lot better. On the Seattle side, it's just Ellison of note.
Right.
There's nothing else. Jordan Evans is out for Seattle. He's a good linebacker, so it hurts the defense a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, breaking news. I like it. We got to do it right on the air here, which is fun. Usually we drop these kind of things in Discord, so that was helpful. We're halfway through, guys. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and we'll keep moving on and get to the third game, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3:00. It is probably the least attractive game on the slate. We've got the San Antonio Brahmas at the Arlington Renegades tomorrow at 3:00. Brahma's quarterback situation is no longer, Cone is out. Kalen Balaj is now out for the season, I believe. So they're dealing with a lot of injuries. They brought in Ben Kurt, but I believe Bruce can elaborate on the quarterback situation. So Bruce, tell me about the San Antonio Brahmas quarterback situation, all the transactions going on in this game, and are you targeting anybody? I know Jacquez Patrick might be a bit intriguing with Balaj out, but are you targeting anybody in this game?
So these teams just played last week. It was 12-10. Arlington won. San Antonio had their new offensive coordinator in place, and they threw the ball 42 times and ran it 12. So I think that could be what we see going forward here. Is a lot of passing, but the problem is, they have Jawan Pass in there now. He should be starting. He wasn't great in college. I kind of had high hopes for him, but he didn't look that great. To be honest, not very accurate. They picked up Binkert later. I think it was midweek, maybe Wednesday. So he hasn't had a lot of time to work with the team yet, learn the plays. Which the plays are probably pretty simple in the XFL, but that's still pretty quick. He is an ex-NFLer. I think he was Green Bay.
Possibly. Yeah, I believe this was Green Bay for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has talent, but is he even in the player pool this week? No, I don't think so.
I don't believe so. No, I don't think he's in the player pool. Yeah.
Didn't even matter. But yeah, I don't mind if you play pass. In tournaments, he does have some upside rushing. But yeah, this defense, Arlington defense is rough. Like I said, 10 points last week. That was with their 1 and 2 quarterbacks playing. So yeah, I really want to fade this game. There's not too much I see that I want to play. Patrick is solid. Hillman is solid as well. The backup running back at 3K if you want to dumpster dive there. I don't hate him. With Balaj out, once they get Calvin Turner back, that guy is really good. But he's going to be out this week again. Hasn't played yet this year. San Antonio at wide receiver is very thin as well. So, you could convince me to play like a TJ Vasher or a Fred Brown because Travis Toivonen is out again or out this week. He played last week, but I guess he got injured. And Landon Akers is back for San Antonio.
I saw that, yeah.
So, if Bankert gets some more run, I don't hate that as a contrarian option because, he caught a lot of short passes week one and, made some moves. I thought he looked good. Arlington is very stacked at wide receiver. They have picked up some guys midweek too that aren't in the player pool. So, like Javonte Payton, 3K should start. They picked up Victor Bolden, who is a playmaker, but he's not in the pool.
He was a USFL guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
I forgot was he on Philadelphia? I can't remember. But he was.
I can't remember.
He was a good play in the USFL for us almost every week. So, yeah, I don't mind him when he's in the pool and when he's not injured. I think he had a hamstring issue and may not even play. So, Canella, tight end, always a solid floor play, but he hasn't had much upside since they don't throw the ball down the field to him too much.
Right.
But yeah, I think I'll stick to the defenses in this game if I'm going to play anybody. Arlington or San Antonio, they project well as on the defensive side.
Yes, and Kyle Sloter has been rough to watch. I didn't watch last week though. Was he kind of obviously he probably was based on the final score just as brutal?
Yeah. I think Plitz looked better. Tried to push the ball down the field a little bit more. Um, uh,
Did they bring him in?
they did not. No.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they're still running with Sloter.
Yeah, their average depth of target is also really low, both of
Yeah.
them. So, yeah, there's not much upside there. Sloter has more upside rushing, but yeah, he hasn't shown it too much.
Right. Okay. Bobby, we'll go over to you for this game. I know you mentioned Patrick earlier. I have a little interest there just because that price point is nice. I have some interest in the defenses. Who are you looking at in this game?
I mean, I'm mainly looking at the defenses in Patrick. There's not
Yeah.
a ton else that really jumps out at me. You've got some pass catchers that Bruce mentioned that will get some volume. I have played a ton of Sal Cannella this year, and he hasn't scored a touchdown. I mean, part of it's just because, they've been pretty bad on the Arlington side, but
Yeah.
he's still a focal point of the offense as far as
Right.
who's getting the most targets and stuff. And, at some point, if you're the main guy, you'd think there's a little bit of touchdown regression and he gets in the box one of these weeks. So I think that Canelo might be a little bit lower owned this week just based on, his price tag and just not having any of those big games. So I think that Canelo is a little bit interesting here. I like him a little bit. But outside of that, in the passing game, it's hard to really get excited about anything here. So that's basically Patrick, Canella, the defenses, and I'm moving on. If I want a cheap quarterback, I'm just going to play Dormandy,
Sure.
especially with Paxton Lynch inactive this week.
Right. Absolutely. All right. The good old catch-up game. So we can move on to the fourth game, which we have the Houston Roughnecks at the DC Defenders. It's a good game. I mean, who knows? How about there's an undefeated football team in DC, and I don't care because I'm just a diehard Redskins fan and don't care. But I love my XFL to try to make some money. So go Defenders, I guess. And yeah, they've got a good game between two very good teams in the XFL. And so that'll be interesting. Two very good aggressive defenses, which I think will be very interesting. DC's identity is definitely to run the ball. Houston's more to, more through the air. So I think that presents a very interesting kind of potential game script and two good defenses. How is that going to play out? This game's on Monday at 7 p.m. to wrap up the slate. So with the Monday Night Hammer here, Bruce, who are you targeting? Who are you looking at?
Yeah, DC's defense, they've been really solid this year. I think they're better than what Houston faced in Seattle last week. So I think this game kind of stays lower scoring, especially with Kirkland out. It's tough to find. I don't really want to play Silvers. I think he's going to be lower owned than the other good passers on the slate, like DiNucci and McCarron. They do want to pass the football, so I don't mind the receivers on this side, on the Houston side. With Kirkland out, there's going to be some obviously some good value opening up here, and like Justin Smith, he's going to be a little owned this week. Did catch a touchdown last week, and he's going to be replacing Kirkland on the outside. And he's a speedy receiver. Was banged up early in the year, and he's a good value play. I think Travell Harris should get more ownership this week, playing out of the slot. Got 63% of the snaps last week. Cedric Byrd as well, and of course Burnett. Burnett's going to be lower owned just because of the price point.
Right.
But, he went off week one, and I think he'll be targeted a lot more this week as well. So the problem with DC's defense is giving up the big play, and he's a burner on the outside along with Smith. So if you want to get contrarian, I think that's a good option there. DC, it's really hard to play their passing game just because they're not going to pass it that much. They're the lowest passing team in the league. They love to run it. So yeah, I do have some interest in Abram Smith in lineups where maybe pay down at quarterback and pay down for a receiver. So I think he's interesting. No one's playing Max Borghi this week either. And I like playing him when he's lower owned. Sure. Because he's going to see some targets. He's averaging 4 on the year, and he can score a touchdown on the ground. Has three so far this year.
Right.
And I think he's a good play. Tight end, nothing of note here. But I think Te'amu could be in play for DC, but just never know when Draftkings going to come in. So I tend to avoid those situations.
Okay. I think that's a good breakdown because again, DC kind of like that running side. Houston, you like that passing side. So, Bobby, I know you like the Houston passing side. Are you kind of focusing there? You giving any attention to the DC side? What are you doing with this Monday Night Hammer?
Yeah, it'll be weird not having Silvers in my core this week. I likely going Danucci with my as a core play for quarterback this week. And I've been on Houston every single week, but
Right.
with Kirkland out this week, definitely opens up some additional targets. And honestly, some of those Houston price tags are pretty nice. Justin Smith played 65 of 70 snaps last week and scored the touchdown, so he obviously looks really good, replacing Kirkland. And I've been someone that's played quite a bit of Deontay Burnett, like him quite a bit. And then obviously Travell Harris looks really good too. So, I think I'm fine even if I'm not playing Silvers based on what the volume should look like here. It is a little bit tougher matchup against DC, but I'm fine playing two Houston pass catchers, like just based on the volume that they're going to have in this offense. I'm totally fine playing two of those guys, and just Houston has that better offense compared to other teams in the league. So I would just, as far as some of the other kind of mid-range wide receiver options we've talked throughout the show so far, I would just rather take a shot on the Houston plays. I like the offense better, like that, especially with Kirkland. There's an opportunity for some of those guys to step up. And similar to Bruce, I like Max Borghi as a low-owned running back play. I would rather play him than Abram Smith. Again, I think that DC and Houston are two of the better teams in the league, but I can definitely see just DC not being very good in the pass game and just being, a hashtag establish it type of team. I don't have any interest in the pass game. You can take a shot on Te'amu. He obviously has rushing upside, but, Kane can vulture him. Smith can get those goal line touches. So I'm just not really on Abram Smith this week, even after the big week last week. I'll let others chase, and I'd rather spend up for Borghi or Brian Hill, or in general, I prefer spending down at the running back position. Borghi split the running backs carries last week, but he did have 5 catches and scored a touchdown. So just a running back that's going to be that involved in the pass game, has that type of TD equity and a good offense. I think that him being super low on this week, I think is a really interesting GPP play. So I still have a ton of interest in Houston, like I usually do. I'm usually very heavy on Houston and Seattle every single week. There's so many teams in the league and so many teams that are actually good and can actually throw the ball a little bit. So like the Houston pass catchers, like Borghi is contrarian. I don't think that Silver is a terrible play if you want to play my quarterback. I'm just, I'm more likely to spend up on McCarron or Ben DiNucci or go all the way down for Normandy. So that's my take on the Houston side of things. And then, Lucky Jackson seems to get most of the targets each week on the Houston side on the DC side of things. But I can't get excited about that. I really have pretty much no interest in DC. Like, I think they put some points on the board, and I think it's a competitive game, but I can't get excited about it. So it's kind of Houston or bust for me. Or if you want to go to the DC defense, they've been good this year. And we saw Seattle has a pretty solid defense, stifle Houston a little bit last week. So, I would imagine that the defender should be a little bit lower owned. Most people that are spending up on defense are probably going to go to Seattle against Orlando, or punting down on someone in like the Arlington, San Antonio game.
Right. So Borghi was your spend up option that you kind of alluded to earlier. I like it.
Not as much as suspense with the XFL. There's only so many teams, so many plays, so many spend ups. But
right. I like it because you both mentioned that he could be lower owned too. So 2 quick follow up questions. One, if you guys had to just choose one Houston receiver, would you rather get the more contrarian, probably Burnett, pay up to be contrarian, or would you take the savings with Harris? I'll go to you first, Bobby, and then go back to Bruce.
Yeah, I think in general, I'm prioritizing Latimer and Butler the most at wide receiver, so I'd rather go to Harris.
Okay.
between those options on the
I was
XFL.
leaning the same way. That's why I was just kind of curious
Yeah.
to get your guys' take, and I'm sure the people watching are too. So, Bruce, same question for you. Who are you prioritizing if you had to choose one of the Houston receivers now with Kirkland out?
Yeah, I think I'd lean Smith as well. In tournaments, Harris is going to be lower owned, so I think yeah, just because he's priced higher, 6,300 compared to Smith's 4,100. I think Harris is a good pivot off of Smith there. But yeah, Smith is going to be on the field the whole game. His
Okay.
average depth of target is almost 18 yards per target, so that's you love to see that, and he's really fast. So all it takes is one against this DC defense. So I think he gets there early on.
That could be a good showdown play too, as well on Monday night.
Yeah.
Before we get to the guys' plays of the day, I'm just kind of curious who you guys are prioritizing on defense. We've mentioned a lot of defensive plays as we've gone on game by game. I'll go to you first, Bobby. Like, who are you prioritizing? Because you could spend all the way up for Arlington going against San Antonio and the question mark at quarterback. You could pay down for San Antonio in that game. We just mentioned in this last game, two very aggressive defenses. They may be lower owned. Who are you kind of prioritizing at defense this week, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm prioritizing San Antonio for the most part at defense. Get a little bit of salary savings there.
Sure.
Especially because I like the idea of, either stacking Seattle and then also having some Orlando bringbacks. So, I mean, not to say that Seattle's defense still couldn't get there this week, especially with, just less defense options. So I think that Seattle's still a good play. They're my favorite spend up, but I think the Arlington San Antonio game is going to be low scoring. I'm already wanting to target Patrick at running back, so naturally, kind of carries over from NFL. I like having that defense and running back correlation a little bit.
Sure.
So I think that San Antonio maybe doesn't have quite as much upside as like a Seattle or some of those other spend upset defense, but I think they're going to put up a solid score. The quarterback play from Arlington, even if Slaughter plays the whole game or if he gets benched, it's been very uninspiring, and I definitely like San Antonio in this spot. A little bit of salary savings.
Okay, I definitely am in line there. San Antonio is definitely one of my higher. I think I'm one of the defenses I'm going to be the highest exposed to. So, Bruce, how about you? Who are you kind of most interested in for the defenses?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the same thing as you guys. San Antonio's they're gonna be high owned just because of the price, 3,800.
Right.
But they only gave up 12 points last week, and Arlington's probably going to do the same thing on offense as they always do, which is bore you to death. So yeah, it's going to be a boring game. So I like San Antonio. I think a contrarian option to play would be the Defenders defense. At 4,300. I think they're solid, and Houston's going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. They do have some ball hawks back there in the secondary. So all it takes is one return to the house there, and you're there. So only 4,300 for that defense, and I have them 15 to 20% owned compared to like a 30% owned for the Seattle defense, which I think is a great play as well.
Right.
Seattle's tackling and rush defense and coverage are near the top of the league here, and they shut down Houston last week.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's good. We kind of presented a lot of good options of defense, whether you're salary saving, or getting a little more contrarian. I think there are definitely, the defenses have really, really shined in the XFL. So I think you definitely have multiple options you can go to depending how your lineup construction shakes out. All right, guys, it's just about an hour until the lineup lock. So, but before we get out of here, we got to give the people the plays of the day. So again, if you're joining us, we thank you very much for joining us. If you haven't hit the like button yet, hit the like button on the way out. Be sure to check out our core plays and Bobby's playbook if you're finalizing, lineups here in the next hour. Hopefully we've been able to pull a lot of good things from what these guys have been saying so we can build some winners, and we'll be dropping showdown cores and things like that in the Discord as well. So now, guys, let's get to your guys' plays of the day. I'll go to you first, Bruce. Who is your, play of the slate? We got a 3-day slate here.
I would lean Cody Latimer. If he's going to be under 20% like he's projected to be, He's 7K, but he's looked like the best receiver, close to the best receiver in the league so far this year, especially last week, almost 30 DK. Gets good matchup against Seattle. I just think it's a good play. They should be playing from behind. Finally has a good quarterback in there in Dormandy. So, yeah, give me Cody Latimer.
Okay, I like it. Bobby, over to you. Who is your play of the slate?
I'm going to go with Deontay Burnett. He's a guy that I've played quite a bit this year. He should be extremely low owned. I think he's got, a massive ceiling in this spot and should be really low owned, and someone that I think could win you a GPP. So definitely could play him in a Houston stack or just play him as a one-off and hope that he's the one that has a big game. And I could definitely see him putting up 25 plus points this week.
Okay. Well, my core, I've dropped a couple players of my core, is a DiNucci stack, but I'm going to give you my play of the day here based on the news that Bruce mentioned earlier with the Orlando quarterback situation. I am definitely going to run a Quentin Dormady lineup or two. I definitely think it's more, again, what it allows you to do with that lineup. And if no quarterbacks go absolutely nuclear this week and the quarterback scoring is a little more condensed, a Quentin Dormady lineup can really maybe allow you to get there, especially if he's lower owned. So that is my play of the day, or play of the slate. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Again, check out everything on the site. Check out the Discord. We will be in there. And good luck this week 6. So for Bobby, for Bruce, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.